Where the Night Rules by Tramping Pony. Luna hit herself across the face, just as she felt herself dozing off again. She took a deep breath, watching the air become a cloud before her mouth. Maybe she should close the windows. Just one more line, then she was done. She put the quill beside the inkpot and leaned away from the table, looking at the room. Papers and parchment laid over the carpeted floor, and the ceiling was magically augmented to let her see right through it. The sun would soon meet the horizon, and then she needed all her strength to pull the moon up. She couldn't ask Tia to do it. The poor girl had hardly slept ever since the plague had hit all Pegasus. Luna would have liked to ask her sister, though. Right now she was working on more important things than the cycle of the sun and moon. The Alicorn looked up at the paper again. Only a few more lines, and then it would be finished. She just had to finish the draft, and then she only needed to wait. She called it Manhattan, a city built on an artificial island, and she was sure it would help the eastern ponies a whole lot. They would keep the beaches clear and maybe even build an undercity for the sea ponies. Tia had wanted to refuse the fleeing creature's plight, but Luna had managed to sway her in the morning hours, where her elder sister had only been half awake. She smiled. Manhattan was a chance for every pony, even if it would take 100 years to finish the project with whatever technology they currently had. Still, it was better than anything Tia had ever come up with. Luna took the quill. Tia was busy with court. Every single day that they bothered her. It had calmed down since the days that it had to clean up the mess Discord had left behind, but still, the days had taken their toll on the Princess of the Sun. Luna could still remember that bold, pink-maned mare that had wanted to take the Lord of Chaos on her own, and she had nearly won, that fun-loving, sweet, and honest sister. Luna drew the final lines. Her own well-being was the thing that wasn't on her mind. Tia's, however. Luna couldn't help with the court. No pony ever came to her. They were afraid of the dark, even though the stars did their best to lighten up the night. Luna, however, could help with things big. Already, she had invented the plow and built aqueducts for the water supply in the cities. She knew, however, that no matter what the court had claimed, they still would not praise her. Luna sighed. Finished the last note, she looked at the parchment.
This'll work,
she proclaimed proudly, a grin going up on her face. In the beginning, she would always run through the palace to jump up and down on Tia's bed, until she woke just to show her work well done. Tia needed her sleep, though just as Luna needed to get her ideas to the council. She never called for a night meeting, even though it was her right. In the beginning, it had raised questions, but the princess had always told her subjects that nights were quiet, and her services were not needed. She stood up. It was time. Luna walked to the balcony of her tower and looked to the other side, to Celestia's tower, and there she stood. The mane was the last thing that looked truly royal on Celestia. Her eyes were red, and her cheeks were gaunt.
She hasn't eaten dinner again,
Luna thought, as she gave her sister a worried look.
Rest, my sister! I can handle it from here.
She shouted over and gave her sister a smile. In the beginning, they had done the ceremony together, but Luna could push the sun down now, and push the moon up. Tia needed her sleep. The other mare looked at her. For a second, Luna thought to see disappointment, but that quickly vanished behind a smile.
I wish you a good night, Luna,
she said, and walked as quickly as the royal stride would allow it back to her chambers. Luna blinked. Was Celestia angry with her? No, that couldn't be. They cared for each other, and Tia worked so hard. As her younger sister, Luna had to work hard too. She looked at the horizon. On one side, the sun fell behind it, and from the other, the moon rose. Luna's wings flapped, and her horn began to glow. She relaxed, closed her eyes, and concentrated as well as she could. As every day, she had underestimated the task. There was a reason they were two. Still, this duty she had to do for Tia, and tonight she'd do her duty for Equestria. Before she was finished, she cast one more spell onto the castle. As she opened her eyes, she was greeted by her faraway friends. She smiled at the sky, the stars, and the moon. Aside from the night guards, she was the only pony who understood them. So in a way, because no pony ever looked, this felt sad too. But Luna pushed those thoughts and looked at the cold, snow-ridden lands before her. The winter solstice would soon happen, and once more, no pony would look. Why did she have so many sad thoughts? The princess sighed and moved back into the tower, gathering up her plans and getting the door. The guard slept. Luna had never liked the idea of a night guard. They hardly ever saw their families, and before the Solar Every Pony got a right party act, they hadn't even been proper vacation times for them. Also, she liked the feeling of being the last pony walking awake in the castle. Tia and the guards, they all could sleep. The night belonged to her, and her alone. No pony ever wanted to look at the sky she would have gladly shared, but the ones who would share it with her were the guards, and most of them were in it for the money. Silverblade did it because she had to get some extra coin in for her family. Flavius always hid away and slept through the nights as though the days and the others were no better. What did it mean to be a night guard? She wondered. Maybe some new bardings would raise the morale of the troop and also their status. Maybe. The princess wandered past her sleeping protectors until the council chambers. Tia had told her a long time ago that even during the 100th meeting they had hardly gotten anything done. So Luna provided them with stuff to talk about. She laid her plans firmly on Celestia's side of the table. No, the royal side. This was her place as much as it was Celestia's. After that, her work for the realm was done. It was all that was nowadays. Going through the palace, planting her plans on the table and then walking away. Like always, it was on her way back that she took the palace in. It was all grey and grim, with hundreds of gargoyles outside on the walls. Canterlot was huge, but it wasn't a home for royalty. It was still the same fortress they had occupied in the days of the rebellion against Discord. She needed to change that. When Celestia would go to check on foreign affairs the next time, she'd send all the servants out to do stuff and paint the whole castle anew. That would certainly catch the few looks. The princess stepped into the courtyard where the royal garden was. It consisted of a carrot field and a patch of flowers. They needed a real gardener. No, a real garden. All of this would not do. It depressed her, just looking at it. And there wasn't even enough room to plant a tree. Luna sighed in the dead of the middle of the field, the snow touching cold against her hooves.
Why is this world so depressing?
She asked no pony in particular. There were way too many sad things out there. One time she had left the vicinity of the castle to look at the village they called part of Canterlot. No, twice she had done it. Once 100 years ago, and once a few months back, at the end of the autumn. The first time she had returned to the castle and planted her plans, and then she had returned to see if all her plans fulfilled, and a small city had already prospered. It must have been 1,000 ponies by then. Sadly, under a bridge, she had found one single young colt, covering in the shadows. For a moment she had hesitated, and then she had flown away, panicking. She had immediately sent a guard down there, and he got the small colt to the next orphanage, which was in Cloudsdale. Good thing they had been both Pegasi, or that would have ended badly. Celestia hadn't been of much help either. The council had told her that the orphan problem had been solved, and she had believed them. Luna hated the council. They were decadent and prone to mistakes. She could do their jobs better. If only royalty didn't fall asleep too, both she and Tia could rule over this kingdom and lead it into a golden age of prosperity. She had spent the upcoming nights planning and writing and building down in the forest. She had talked with the animals and conferred with ponies of small settlements down there. In short, she had prepared for doing what she would have done, her duty to the realm. A simple plan. She spread her wings. Luna felt icy wind across her cheeks, her wings flapping in the dark. The stars guided her. They knew what she wanted to do, and they looked down on the princess, and somehow she knew. They cheered. Her gaze went over the moon, who looked down on the planet below. Sometimes she asked herself how it would be to stand upon it. A fantasy she still had. Sometimes she dreamed of just looking down on the planet from up there, and doing nothing. She just wanted to see everything happen. Luna didn't know why she felt that was a good thing. Tia was here, and Tia needed her. Some pony else needed her too. She landed by the well in the middle of the city. The town looked so deserted at night, and only the lanterns shined still. Every pony slept neat and tightly, just as it should be. They needed the rest, because on the morrow they would all work and play beneath the sun again. Luna sighed, and started singing a lullaby she had written some time ago. Her horn began to glisten. The magic of Celestia and Luna was on a different level than the unicorns practiced. They could cover larger areas, and they could tell ponies their intentions through it. They both thought of it as a manipulation, but Luna only had the purest of intentions. From all around they came, small ponies, fillies, and colts. Some were half starved, some looked ill and near dying. They were all levitating towards her. She saw some of them with missing limbs, some ugly and deformed, probably thrown away like garbage. The broken and the abandoned they were. Luna smiled at all of them, and each of them looked back at her. They all knew what they would do next. Still, one pony asked.
To where?
Luna answered.
To where nothing can hurt you anymore. Somewhere safe.
A moment later, with Luna singing her lullaby, they soared through the skies. The children danced behind her, through the clouds and beneath the stars. They laughed since they had never felt this before, and only some looked back. The town of Canterlot got farther and farther away, and beneath them the forest of Equestria spread out in their white and black glory. The woods were as good as dead during the winter. Most animals slept, and the ponies in the settlements didn't do much either, aside from telling tales about Wendigos. Heartwarming Eve was upcoming too. Luna wanted Tia to attend again. They hadn't gone together in the pageant in ages. Her mane glittered the same way the stars did, and the black royal attire was shimmering under the moon's light. She had nothing to protect herself from the cold. The children had her love, the love she fueled her magic with. Using love for magic was an old trick the flutter ponies had used, and had come in handy during the rebellion. Now again, Luna smiled. They flew across the forest into the last remnant of Discord's reign, her childhood home. The Everfree Palace was a shadow of its former self. It hadn't been used in a while, well, until now. Luna had gathered every soul she knew to be trusted in here this night. There was Tendertwig, who had lived in the Everfree Forest since her birth. Then Grendel, a griffin who she had befriended during the summer studies up in the Frozen Lands. Not just they, but others had gathered as well. About 15 ponies, and they had fixed the place up too. They understood the plight of the land. The children sat down and looked at their new home. Inside there waited a warm hearth, burning, beds to sleep in, 3 meals a day. Over the gate stood the sign, Lunar Orphanage. The thing was huge, with giant garden to play in, and soon there would be more. The princess wanted to give every child without a home hope for the future. Luna had written and planned and built over the course of the winter. She wanted to help the children first, and then work herself up. This was only temporary, they knew. Canterlot had to grow before it could sustain an orphanage of its own. This was well enough. She would do it her way, without politicians interfering. The night belonged to her, and her alone. And as long as she reigned as princess, the equestrian nights would be the safest of all. She passed the children on, promising to visit them every night, whether she could bring them new friends or not. Luna spread her wings and moved back to Canterlot. The sun would surface again, and she would be needed for the ritual. Right now, she had to return to the castle and make new plans. The end.